Maybe we're ready to go, and welcome back to another episode of the Coaster101 podcast. I'm Andrew Stillwell, and I am joined by a collection of two of my co-writers with Coaster101, who I like to refer to as the Ohi-bros. Both Ohio natives, but first joining me is, first time in a little bit, Kyle Lindner comes back to the podcast. Kyle, welcome back to the Coaster101 podcast.
Hey, thank you. I'm glad to be back. It's been a while.
It has been. And it has not been a while, really, for our other guest, Nick, who we just spoke to about our respective spring breaks on opposite Disney coasts in a previous episode. But Nick Weisenberger, also up in Ohio, is back on the Coaster101 podcast. Welcome, Nick. How's it going?
Hey, thanks for having me back. It's going pretty well.
The views were skyrocketing, and by views I mean listens, because it's a podcast and we're still not on video yet. So the people were like, "We want Nick, and
Yeah, right.
I don't actually. It might have been your wife. I don't know.
Probably.
But you guys, I'm jealous. Let's just go ahead and get it out into the open. I'm extremely jealous of the experience that you guys got to have, and that we're going to talk today about. You guys went to America's Roller Coast in Sandusky, Ohio, Cedar Point, and you were there on Media Day for the all-new Top Thrill 2. I'm very happy I get to talk with you guys, but I hate you both. So, but we're going to dive right into it. Nick, I'll start with you. Again, you guys are both from Ohio. But coming up on the causeway and seeing this coaster in the distance, how did Top Thrill 2 alter the Cedar Point skyline for you?
Well, there's very few things that will get me up at 4 a.m., but going to a media day at Cedar Point is definitely at the top of that list. And yeah, as you come over that causeway, I mean, Cedar Point already had like one of the best skylines, one of the best approaches to any park ever. And now that you've got not one, but two 420-foot towers, just makes it even better, especially when it was dark in the early morning. And they actually had most of the rides were all lit up and glowing and the lights flashing. So yeah, it was just like really surreal to see.
Yeah. Kyle, I mean, you guys are rolling in at 0 dark 30 for these rides. And what was your first impression on seeing Top Thrill 2 up close and personal for the first time?
I mean, it was so cool because, growing up in Ohio, I kind of, as I was coming into like my true theme park fandom, it was about the time Top Thrill Dragster opened. So being able to like follow that, and then, 18 years later, now getting the chance to be there myself, that was kind of a surreal moment. And you couple that with the fact that we had to get up at 4 a.m. and you drive up the causeway and it looks like it's midnight at Cedar Point with all the lights on. It definitely got our blood pumping, ready to go.
And you guys, you were staying, I think, on site, right, at the Sawmill Resort. So it wasn't a like get up at 2:30 or whatever, or stay up the night before and have to drive all that way. At least you guys were there kind of a little bit in advance, right?
Yeah, I think we left at like 7:30 the night before. So it was probably like 10 o'clock or something that we got into Sawmill Creek.
Oh my gosh.
Which is just down the road, luckily. But it was a crazy 24 hours.
I believe it. And, this was we're going to call it a temperate mid-April morning, or late April morning. What was the temperature you guys were, I've seen descriptions of outfits and things you guys were wearing, but how cold was it at 4 a.m.?
When we got into the car, it was 35 degrees. And I think by 5 a.m. when we rode, it was a warm 37.
Oh, very, very warm 37, which I'm sure that breeze at 74, 101, and 120, it warms you right up, right?
Yeah.
Thankfully, it
It's
wasn't
great.
windy though. If it had been windy that day, it would have been even worse. But luckily, there was no wind,
That's
so
good.
it made it a little better.
Okay.
Yeah. The one chill on the ride is that's a different story.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Look, you're going up 420 feet. You're okay. Let's get right into the queue area for this new attraction. They've built out this whole kind of CP racing is the storyline behind this, and I think as we've talked about on previous podcasts, I think Cedar Fair is doing a really strong job with their storytelling. How do you feel like the story of CP racing was conveyed through the queue? Kyle, I'll start with you.
I thought it was really cool how they kind of are telling a bigger story than Top Thrill Dragster did. It was just like this is here in the middle of the park, and now you have this whole area that's dedicated to drag racing and this like futuristic, modern looking, uh, real real sleek signage. I'm a graphic designer, so I really appreciated like just the attention to detail, the clean lines, clean colors. Even though I can't see all the colors, but so the CP racing it just takes it to a different level where I think they can do more with that in the future, depending on other refurbishments they might do in that area, or a future coaster. That'd be cool to see taking that same theming and just pushing it a little bit more.
Do you think one day that when they eventually retheme Iron Dragon, they're gonna call it Dragon Iron or something like that?
Or
Nick,
like
what?
dueling racing dragons.
Yeah, Nick, what'd
Get
you think
another
of
one in
the?
there.
Yeah, Nick, what'd you think of the overall theme?
I like it a lot better than the old theme, even though it's still racing. It's just a lot more sleek. I guess we should clarify too. Like the queue is mostly not themed. It's in between like the launch track and the brake run, and mostly covered now. But the midway has a lot more signage and things like that than before. They still have the grandstands there where you can sit and watch the trains zoom back and forth. So that's really cool. Plus, now you have the added benefit of you can get really close to the launch track and get like right up on almost underneath the spike and look straight up and see people's faces as they're going backwards up 101 miles per hour.
Oh my goodness.
So it's just like an awesome spectator ride.
I believe it. Yeah, and we've talked on the podcast before with Adam Sandy of Zamperla, and you guys mentioned you spoke to him a little bit during the media day, but he was telling us about how rides aren't just for those who are riding anymore. They're also for the onlooker, for mom and dad or grandma and grandpa who don't necessarily want to ride, but are just immersed in the spectacle of these two twin 420-foot tall structures. The top hat on one side and the spike on the other. Um, I think it's very interesting for you to like say that it is a really good spectator ride, and I think everyone used to sit there on those bleachers in that launch track when it hit that hydraulic 120-mile-per-hour launch and just kind of watch the reactions. I think now you've got this just three very unique situations. You've got that first 74-mile-per-hour launch where you can see the faces. You can see the backwards reactions as they hit that 101-mile-per-hour launch backwards, go up the spike. That's a third reaction. And then the fourth reaction is that, again, that full throttle, forgive the pun. Um, Not really a pun. For that full throttle 120-mile-per-hour launch up the top hat. So like you said, I think it is a really good spectator ride and something definitely, even for those who aren't riding, it's something
And
just to sit there and watch for a little bit for
yeah,
sure.
and it's not just watching the sounds too. Like every time the train comes out of the station, there's a song that plays. When it's launching back and forth, it sounds like a jet taking off. Which, if you go to our YouTube channel, we got some off-ride video from Media Day that you can watch and hear some of those sounds.
Sweet. We love roller coaster ASMR. All right, we're 10 minutes in, almost, give or take here. Let's finally get into the ride experience. And again, both of you guys I'm assuming, have ridden multiple times the original OG Top Thrill Dragster with its 0 to 120 mile per hour hydraulic launch. You go up the top hat, you come down the top hat, you hit a straight track, you hit the brakes, you loop back around. This new ride experience, and Nick, I'll start with you because I think you're going to look at it more from an engineering perspective, maybe not. What is, let me start with this. Which ride experience do you prefer? The original or the new one?
Oh, that's easy for me. Definitely the new one.
And why is it the new one that you prefer?
I just think overall it's a better experience, a more complete ride, and just yeah, like the one thing the original had going for it was that initial launch and just how crazy intense it was. So the new one, that first launch, is much weaker, but after that, like every other aspect, I like better. Like you have the backwards launch is just, I mean, it kind of makes up for that initial intensity, the spike, and then launching forward. I think the new trains are really comfortable. Love the restraints, and I think the seats actually sit up higher than the original one, so that changes the forces a little bit. So when you go up that top hat, like when you hit that first 90 degrees turn, you're really whipped through that turn. It's pretty snappy, and then as soon as you start cresting that top hat, you go flying out of your seat, and you're just out of your seat like the entire way over. And then for a split second, you think it starts to let up, and then it's even more powerful as you head down, and it whips you around as you go spin down. So like just the top hat, I think, was just somehow way better than the original. With the combination of the restraints, they're just more comfortable, and I think it just allow you to feel that airtime better in the higher position, and just all these little things that add up to just to make the experience better overall.
Yeah, and you say, I mean, you talk about the launch, like a 74 mile per hour launch. There's not that many coasters in the world that do that. Like everyone's like, the launch is so weak, it's so slow, and I've seen this on social media. 74 miles per hour, and granted, it's not like 0 to 74 in like 2 seconds. This is no slouch of a launch, right, Kyle?
No, I mean, it goes halfway up the 420-foot tower on that first launch. I think people are just so used to having that massive first launch that, this one, it's,
It
I
kind of
don't know,
takes
a
you by
little
surprise
disappointing.
almost.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Like, I mean, even a coaster like Tron, that's one of the more recent launch coasters I've ridden. That first launch on Tron, it's super forceful. And you're sitting there and you feel it and you keep accelerating. And I imagine this is a lot what the Top Thrill 2 launch feels like, where you're just going, and like you're continuing to kind of hit those magnets and accelerate and go up that tower. But when you head the tower, everyone gets a rollback. As I think somebody on social media, I think it was Coaster Cuzzies, called it a participation trophy, which I think is pretty funny. Um, but you do something that I don't think has ever been done on a roller coaster before. You have a backwards launch of more than 100 miles per hour. What is that sensation like, Kyle?
uh, in our article we wrote, I said that was my favorite part of the ride, uh, just because it's such a unique feature that, I mean, other than Top Thrill 2 now, you can look at like Wicked Twister or something like that that would launch you forwards and backwards, but nothing that had as much force as Top Thrill 2 does. 101 miles an hour is really fast to go backwards. Like we're used to, catching 80, 90 going forward, but when you hit that going backwards, it's like it takes your breath away, and then you just like shoot into the air that in a direction you're not looking. So it's just you're just floating up above the park. It gets farther and farther away, and it almost feels like you stop at the top for a little bit because like you just look around and your power tower's on your right and you're higher than that. And you can look to your left and you're taller than Millennium Force over there. And when you head back down, you float all the way down. It feels like, I counted 5 seconds. I think we had airtime. It was just insane.
That is absurd. I think 5 seconds 5 seconds of sustained floater air time, because you'll get it as it's, gravity is taking you up to the top. You'll get it as you're coming down and
Right.
pulling you the other direction. And I think maybe the Superman at Six Flags Magic Mountain, when the trains were facing backwards, but that was like one car. This is an entire train that goes backwards up 100 miles an hour. And these trains, they're based on IAPA and pictures and everything I've seen. These are not small trains. These are like larger than life, full blown dragster trains with
and the wheels are massive too. They're, as we've said before, I think that they're the largest roller coaster wheels at Cedar Point.
It's like 50 pounds a wheel or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So you hit the backward spike, 101 miles per hour, all the way up to 0 or whatever it is before it comes back down. And you hit that kind of multi-pass accelerating launch. And it is 120 miles per hour, and but it is probably not as forceful as that original hydraulic launch. Or did you feel like it was still forceful, but maybe not as forceful, Nick?
Definitely not as forceful, but still a pretty good force. And it also depends on where you sit. Like when you're sitting in the back, when you go up that backward spike, you get some pretty good G's in that going into that pull out on your way up. And of course, wherever you sit on your way down, there's that fantastic head chopper with the station. It almost made me duck every time.
Hey, that's what we like to hear. We love a head chopper that causes you to react, even though you're mostly safe. How many times do you guys ride during media day?
We got on 9 times. Yeah.
9. I hate you 9 times even more. But was there a better seat in your opinion? I'm maybe you guys have differing opinions here, but Kyle, did you have a favorite seat or favorite location on the train? Front row, back row, somewhere in between? What's your vote here?
Well, I would, if I can speak for Nick and I, we love row 4. Apparently,
we got stuck in row 4 like what 4 times down to 9.
4 times, yeah. We just get up there and be like, "Please not row 4," and it's like, "Oh, go to row 4." But to answer your question, we got to ride in the second to back row twice, and I think if you're going for max thrills, max force, feelings, that's your go-to spot. I wish we had a chance to ride in the very front. We didn't. We'll have to get back and try that.
I think that you might be waiting a little bit for that. Nick,
yeah.
Are you a row 4 stan, or are you somewhere in the you prefer the back of the train? What are we thinking here?
I think I do prefer row 4 just because I think the airtime over the top hat was more consistent, like more powerful all the way through. But if you want the best view, like the best spike experience, it's definitely in the back, because then you get more G-forces when you first hit the spike, and then you go up higher. You can look down on the full train. But then when you go over the top hat, it's not as much airtime at first. But then when you get whipped over the top, it's pretty fun on the way down.
I love it. And, Cedar Point, obviously very famous for its views of Lake Erie. Are you up there long enough at the atop the top hat to kind of be able to take in your surroundings and see what's going on around you that high up in the air?
No, not at all.
Yeah. And yeah, like
for some reason,
with the crazy airtime, especially, like you're just, I think, too shocked, like it's how powerful and strong it is, and then as soon as you start to get your bearing, you get whipped around through the twist on the way down.
Gotcha. Yeah, I feel like I rode King to Ka. I've never rode Top Thrill Dragster because the restraints were different on both rides. I rode King to Ka, and by the time you catch your breath from that initial launch, you're all the way already on the way back down. And how are they cycling trains? I mean, everyone is like, well, the capacity is going to be great, not great, because there's more there's more track and there were already long waits. How many trains were they cycling at one time?
So for media day, they were running 2 trains, but it was hard to judge like their operational efficiency because like they would run maybe like 4 like in a row, and then they'd have to stop and wait for 20 minutes because there were lots of live shots, so they were
Yeah.
trying to time them up with the news channels, so that slowed things down quite a bit. But I think when it does open to the public, it should have really good efficiency, especially when you consider that you don't have any loose articles, so you don't have to worry about any of that. There's a separate load and unload area, and the load area, they are assigning seats, at least for media day they were, so I assume that they're going to do that during the season. And then like in terms of getting into the train and sitting down and checking lap bars, I was really quick, so I feel like the operationally it should be very, very good.
And no seatbelts, right?
Right. No seatbelts to check.
No seatbelts, no loose articles. This thing, I mean, we could have like almost, I mean, probably not, but like Velocicoaster-esque dispatch times here. It's like get in the train and go. And just
I think if when they hit their stride this summer, and if they can run 3 trains, that is going to be just like a well-oiled machine for sure. Because even when they were operating 2 trains quickly, it was shocking how quick it was going out, like compared to other coasters. So if they can get 3 going, they would get through their line really well.
Yeah. And I'll ask you guys. I mean, you're both a little lighter weight than I am, but how were the seats on those Zamperla Lightning trains? I mean, were they comfortable? Were they roomy? Were they forgiving size wise? I mean, not that you guys would know, but there could have been other people there who you could have witnessed. But I mean, were the trains comfortable?
Yeah, I think they definitely were. I thought they were roomy, more roomy than some other coasters. And we didn't see anyone get walked off. At least I didn't.
Right. I was going to say the same thing. I didn't see anyone where they had to take the walk of shame. I agree. They're really comfortable seats and restraints.
Sweet. I love that. And as someone who has been walked at a media day, it's not a good time. I just want to go on record and say that. But I'm excited. I've got a coworker of mine he's already planning his trip up to Cedar Point in Sandusky this year, and he's telling me all about it. And he's like, "Oh man, I'm going to get there early and ride first." And I'm like, "You and everybody else, buddy. It's going to be you guys are going to be waiting a little bit." With the locker situation being what it is, I think there was a little bit of scuttlebutt online, and I know it's tough to tell on a media day because far fewer people, they're kind of cycling guys through. Do you think they're going to have to add more lockers at some point during the season in the top thrill queue area?
Yeah, I can see where they would get to the point where they will. We saw it with about 100 people that the lockers were also free that day, so we didn't have to wait for people at the kiosk to pay, get their stuff in the locker and whatnot. I think we did it 4 or 5 times and it was pretty smooth. But I can imagine once you get 1,000 people around there, that's going to be a madhouse. And I can't remember, Nick, if you remember what we counted, how many lockers were right there, like 600-700 ish.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but it didn't seem like there was quite enough. But
Yeah,
there is another
queue.
Yeah, there's another bank of lockers just up the midway by Magnum. I know some people online were saying like they should have added lockers inside the queue, which they should have planned for that from the very beginning. I don't know, like we were talking the last podcast, Andrew, like if when you build any new big dynamic roller coaster, you should just plan to have no loose articles and then have like some kind of locker system in the queue like Velocicoaster or some others. But now that they're in this situation, like when we were there and we were looking around, I don't see any way where they could add lockers inside the queue now, because you have the queue area is very small, number one, in between the in between the tracks. Plus, you have like the transfer tracks where they keep the trains there. But also, the load and unload areas are separate. And the unload area, you exit the train on the opposite side of what you load. So like there would be no easy way to get back inside of the ride to get your stuff in the locker and then get to the other side of the tracks again.
And Nick, I'm going to ask you to put on your armchair engineering hat here. And this is without me seeing anything or knowing anything about the system. Could a system like what Canada's Wonderland has with Yukon Striker, with the bins on a track, work here, or not? The space wouldn't necessarily work for that.
If they had planned for that from the beginning, maybe. But
Okay.
the other problem too is the spike track is right next to the other side of the station. So there's like the station is actually divided kind of in half, like the old Dragster station. So there's a big wall, and the spike track is right on the other side of that wall. So the trains come flying through there. So that's like the other problem too. Even if you had like a separate exit or something, like you have to weave underneath or around that spike track somehow. So yeah, it's there was no easy solution I that I could see. And yeah, I thought of that because people were saying like, oh, you could put stuff in bins. And, okay, how do you get the bins to the other side of the track? Or plus, you can't just trust people to put all their stuff in a bin. You still have to go through a metal detector because trust me, you do not want anything flying out of that car when it's going 120 miles per hour.
Facts.
So I fully
Absolute
understand
facts.
the loose article policy.
Did they have signage near the queue that was set up that was like, "Hey, don't wear sandals"? Did they Was like the shoe thing, was that advertised anywhere?
I don't
I
remember
don't
seeing that
think
at all.
so.
Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully, I think it opens this weekend. Depending on when this podcast drops, it may have opened last weekend. I don't know. We'll see what Twitter says about the release schedule. I asked if we should record, because I'm recording 2 episodes tonight. I asked if we should just drop them both at the same time, but see what Twitter says. So at some point in the next several days or previous few days, we'll probably have an answer to that question, but we don't have it right now. Um, the media day itself, though, I mean, there's more to a media day than just first rides. I mean, we're all coaster enthusiasts. We want to ride as much as possible. Was there any, speaking or presentation or anything like that, or was this strictly just live shots and media and things like that?
Yeah, so there wasn't any presentation. It was, we got there at 5 and got right on. So they took care of us really well. Like you said, we got to talk to Adam for a bit, and then they provided breakfast, and we stayed and got lunch at Backbeat Barbecue, and that was solid, very good. The chef was going around talking to people, and it was probably one of the best theme park meals I've had.
And that was one of the best parts of the forward launch too. Is that when you started going up that spike or the top hat, you could smell the barbecue.
It was so good.
It's like, wow, they put smells on this ride. That's awesome. But yeah, that was another cool part of media day as well. Was just seeing like how you had like the camera crews and how they interacted with like the operation people for Cedar Point and for the ride. Just like we were sitting in the train one time as they're like talking back and forth and like working things out. Like the operation people are like, okay, we have to hit this button, then this button, and then that one sends the train. So that's going to take this long. And the camera people are like, well, we're going to count you down from 30. And then like they're going to go live. So we need to like launch as quickly after that. And yeah, it was fascinating seeing how that all came together.
Yeah, I was looking. I think it was Marcus Lashak from WGN. He was doing like a live shot on the roller coaster, and it's like the amount of like composure you need to do when they're like asking you questions in one ear, you're launching, you're going backwards. I don't know how. I mean, shout out to these news people who do this for a living. I don't know how they do it. It's super, super impressive to kind of see a live shot, especially on a roller coaster, take place.
And their setup was really impressive too, because they even had a drone that was timed up to the whole thing. That when you launched, the drone went up and would get footage of you going up the top hat and then rolling backwards. So it was very impressive.
Man, we gotta find who was okay. You guys did end up in the second row, and I think we'll, if we can find this video, we will put it in the show notes on the podcast. Do you happen to know the news station you guys were in the second row for?
It was Channel 21 out of Fort Wayne.
So, if you happen to be a viewer of the Channel 21 and saw the live shot, you were looking right at Nick and Kyle, and you guys, you may or may not know what they look like because we haven't done video on this podcast yet. But just know, if you're in Fort Wayne, Indiana, you have caught a glimpse of the Coaster101 team in the wild. So, just
was that our first ride too, or second?
It was our second.
Our second ride.
It was still dark out.
Yeah, what was it like having daytime night rides?
It was really strange to experience that caliber of coaster at night first, because you really couldn't tell where you were on that spike or even how high you were going over the top hat. Like, all you could feel were the forces. And we got off of it our second time in the dark, and I think I told Nick, I was like, I can't wait to ride this thing in the day just to be able to like see where we're going. But yeah, it's a totally different ride at night.
Do you have a, you have a preference?
I think it's,
oh, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was just going to answer your question basically before you asked it. This is one of the few coasters that I prefer riding in the daytime versus nighttime, just because, like you said, you could see the view much better in the daytime and just get a full appreciation for how high up you are.
I love it. And, you know, it wouldn't be a new ride without new merch. Let's talk about the CP Racing merch. I mean, you guys posted some of it on our social channels, but all this new merch looks super impressive. What kind of stuff did they have for sale in the whatever the Top Thrill 2 gift shop was called?
Yeah, I can't recall what it was called, but they had to have at least 24 different shirt designs, some featuring the Top Thrill 2 theming, some featuring the CP Racing, some both. They had jersey type material like you'd see in the pit crews, and anything you can imagine, like tin signage, retro looking stuff, all the models, Coaster Dynamics stuff.
Yeah, shout out to Coaster Dynamics and Matt for the coaster cutouts and nano coasters.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've seen bits and pieces of a exclusive Made to Thrill poster. Has Josh gotten his hands into Cedar Point as well? Oh, here we go.
Here.
This is a visual for the audio medium. We've got a made to Thrill debut rider, and we've got what appears to be a Yeti or similar cup.
Yeah.
Official Yeti?
Yeah, dude.
Oh my gosh, they're
so nice.
So they've gone all out with the branding, and we just had Evan on talking Iron Menace, and I know Josh with Made to Thrill did a poster for them as well, and I'm just like, I'm not sponsored content, but Josh, your work is great, and everything you do is great. So check out Made to Thrill, and I've got some Made to Thrill right behind me actually. Some OG Made to Thrill and some actual branded Made to Thrill. But okay, let's get our final thoughts here. I know we've talked about the ride experience, we've talked about the trains, we've talked about the ride itself. I want an elevator pitch. Not that anybody who is a coaster enthusiast needs it, but Nick, if you were convincing a relative of yours to go to Cedar Point this summer and ride Top Thrill Dragster, what's your elevator speech? What's your pitch here?
Just that it's, there's nothing else like it out there right now. I think it's a totally unique ride with the 3 launches. There's nothing else like that backwards launch that you can find really. And it's just now, before it was a one trick pony, but now it's the complete package.
It's it.
And that airtime over the top hat. That's the number one thing for me. Like, insane airtime. One of the best airtime moments now on any roller coaster.
How many tricks does this pony have? I'm thinking we've got the forward launch, rollback would be a second trick, the reverse launch is a third trick, vertical spikes a fourth trick, the 120 is a 5, going up the top hat, and airtime is a 6, and being whipped down around is a 7.
I'd say so.
Yeah, 7 trick pony. It's a little better.
Yeah,
sure. A little better than 1. That's for sure. Kyle, what about you? What's your elevator pitch here?
I would say a lot of people that I've talked to about it so far still have the perception that it's just Dragster that they've painted, and to be able to tell someone like, forget everything you knew about Top Thrill Dragster, this is not the same animal. The only thing about it that's the same is the top hat structure itself, not even the feeling you get going over that top hat. Like you said, it's a one-trick pony before, and the top hat wasn't even a trick. It was just something that you whipped over, didn't have any real forces behind, and now it's a feature in itself. And just going from 1 to 7 different elements, and also doubling your ride time, just making it that much more worth getting in line. Just definitely go check it out.
Perfect. And last question I've got for you guys. According to RCDB, there are 162 roller coasters opening around the world this year. In your opinion, have you guys already ridden the best new roller coaster of 2024? Okay, answer on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Maybe.
Yes.
No. I mean, in the US probably, but I know Voltron
definitely
looks pretty cool. Voltron looks pretty good at Europa Park. I'd say that's probably the only other one that probably comes close.
Okay, well, we've got in the US, and as American coaster enthusiasts,
it'll be the best one that I ride.
There you go. That's what we got to go with. I love it. Before we wrap this up, any other final thoughts you guys want to let the audience have or know about Top Thrill 2?
I would just say take the time to walk through the new area. Just the viewing experience is worth, getting a bite to eat and sitting down for a little bit. Some of the details go unnoticed if you're not looking for them. Like, you have this, the whole viewing area is set up like you're looking at a drag track. So there's like the concrete barrier that's painted with the black fence that goes up. And, some people just walk by that and not notice that, but it's set up like you're at the race. And just take the time to, get some cool shots that you weren't able to get before, and just appreciate it on the other side of the queue as well.
Nick?
Just go to Cedar Point and ride Top Thrill 2, but be sure to leave your flip-flops at home.
There we go. I love it. And yeah, I want to just add on to what Kyle said. And I think with these recent string of Cedar Fair coasters, Copperhead Strike, Iron Menace, all these other attractions, I think the Cedar Fair corporate development, the branding, and the storytelling is top notch right now. So we got to shout out to that corporate design team for giving us these coasters that are just, they tell a story in the queue, they tell a story in the marketing material, and it's not just roller coaster in a parking lot. So shout out to them for that. I think that's a big win for everybody, enthusiast and otherwise. So gotta give them their flowers while we have the platform to do so.
Yeah, Cedar Fair's on top of it right now. I was at Kings Island a couple weeks ago for the construction tour of Camp Snoopy, and just the theming that's going into the new soapbox racers. It's incredible to see coming out of these regional parks. And it's also cool, like at these media events, to see that whole Cedar Fair team come together. You have all these PR managers from all the parks come. So got to see our buddy Chad from Kings Island, and Canada's Wonderland was there. And so it was cool to see all those people. The whole team works really well together and puts on a great event.
for sure. I love it. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Coaster 101 podcast. If you want to read Kyle and Nick's thoughts in a very eloquently written article, head to coaster101.com. Not only do we have thoughts on Top Thrill 2, we have recent reviews on Iron Menace, and we have thoughts as to why Epcot is best experienced as part of the After Hours event. So lots of good stuff on the website. We're also on social media at Coaster101, everywhere you can consume the platform. We even had a TikTok go semi-viral from one of the videos you guys sent me, and I put that weird Kevin James audio. It's got like 50,000 views, which is a big deal for us, especially as elder millennials who still don't understand TikTok at all.
True that.
If you're looking for the latest and greatest in Coaster 101 merch, including stuff designed by professional graphic designer Kyle Lindner and stuff designed by decidedly amateur graphic designer Andrew Stillwell, head to c101.co/tpublic. And if you're listening, make sure you're liking, rating, reviewing, subscribing, telling your friends, listening to us on the audio version on YouTube, whatever you want to do to help us get the word out about this podcast, we would appreciate it. And last but not least, I certainly want to thank JMMD Entertainment for our music. I think we're about 150 episodes in right now, and they have been with us since day one. So shout out to those guys as well. But Nick, Kyle, I appreciate you guys hopping on, as jealous as I am, but thank you for giving us some time to talk all things Top Thrill 2. And yeah, we will talk to y'all again soon. See ya.